There are some cities in the US where parking lots literally take up almost half of the entire city. I'm not even joking. Do you know what it felt like to not drive a car at all for over a year? Absolutely fantastic. That's how it felt. Incredible. Sublime. As some of you know, I just moved back from living in All Ireland since 2022, and I must say, the experience has completely radicalized me to the point that I've changed my birthday from July 4th to St. Patrick's Day. Phenomenal country. I mean, something's changed, obviously. I definitely wasn't looking this fruity before, but that's besides the point. Anyway, conversations with me about car infrastructure and cars in general used to sound like, yeah, it's just a shame that there aren't very many bus and train options to get around. Very sad. Went from that to, you don't know what you're missing, boys. The clandestine beauty of the European experience. You know not what they've stolen from you, you daft American wonders. I don't know, that was my best Lighthouse Willem Dafoe impression. But we don't have to pretend that ever happened, and we can just move right along, and I'd prefer if we do that. So let's pretend that didn't happen. And like any insufferable recent convert, I want you to be as impassioned about this subject as I am. So if you have a couple minutes, I'd like to talk to you about some of my experiences living across the ocean, and why I think we should all be thinking about cars just a little bit differently. I'm genuinely curious, how many of you are capable of conducting most of your life entirely on foot? For me, growing up in the suburbs, the only thing that walking could get me was to the bus stop for school, and maybe to the local gas station for some snacks. That was about it. Pretty much everything else in my life, from school to work, involved a car of some variety, either my own or my parents'. In 2022, for the first time in probably over 2 decades, I was forced to think about transporting myself a little bit differently. Little old me had just stepped off the train into Galway, and I was immediately drenched. All my clothes, my suitcases, my coat, my hat, everything was just immediately soaked because it was raining, of course. I walked to Ayr Square and I waited for my roommates to kindly give me a lift to the new place. Shout out to Ahmed and Omar. You guys are awesome. They showed up. I thanked them for offering me a ride, and it was at this point that I learned you really need to say lift in Ireland, because if you say got a ride, it means you got fucked. So if you're planning on visiting Ireland at some point, that, you know, write that down somewhere. It'll be important, I think. But eventually they got me to the house. It's a very tiny single-story home in the teeny tiny village of Spittle, and over the next day or so they gave me a lift getting groceries and other essential items for the house and the bathroom and the bedroom and whatnot. And then on Friday they both left for a week-long vacation, and I was just kind of left unsupervised in a foreign land to kind of figure things out on my own. Which at first glance doesn't seem like a huge problem, right? I'm an adult, I'm in a foreign land, yes, but everybody speaks English. I've got access to the internet. Surely I can figure out how to get myself into town to have my inaugural pint for the new city that I call home. I couldn't even figure out how to lock the front door. Apparently, in Ireland, maybe the rest of Europe is different, you have to push the handle all the way up and then turn the deadbolt. I have never had to do that for any deadbolt in my entire life. Maybe Utah's just dumb? I haven't tried locking a door in Nevada, so maybe it's just a Mormon thing? I don't know, but I could not. I spent like an hour trying to. By the time I left the front door, it was almost dark. That's how much time I spent trying to make sure the house was secure, and I didn't get all my stuff and my roommate's stuff stolen like the 3rd day I was there. It's very stressful. But anyway, I eventually was off on a 25-minute walk to the village, and on this street are centuries-old rock walls that line either side of it. There are fields that are full of greenery, growing things, flowers, wildflowers. There's donkeys, there's horses, there's cows, there's Shetland ponies. There's abandoned cottages that are just completely overtaken with vines and have that sense of ancient mystery that Americans like me love about Ireland. And also, you can see the ocean from the beginning to the very end of the walk. And in fact, by the time you've finished leaving my street, you're basically on the water's edge. The only thing separating you from the water's edge is a street, a rock wall, and then the beach. I've never had a walk as beautiful as that wasn't a hike or a vacation or going on a holiday somewhere. Like, that was my commute to the village for the next year. Absolutely beautiful. So I find the bus stop, I get on, and I sit down, and behind me are 3 old men that are just chatting away in Huelga, just having the time of their lives. They keep laughing, just, jostling each other, talking about something that was seemingly very interesting. I wish I had any idea what they were talking about. So 45 minutes later, I get off at the Jury's Hotel stop, which is right before the lifeblood of Galway, which is Shop Street. No traffic, no parking lots, no parking meters, just everything else. Just groups of friends going from one pub to the next, buskers on almost every single street corner playing guitars, harps, uilleann pipes, people on the outdoor patios just all bundled up in their winter coats, and stories just pouring out of themselves to each other. Without getting too dramatic, this was the first city that I've ever lived in that felt alive, or at least had some kind of warm rhythm to it that I've never experienced before, ever, anywhere. And living in Ireland, I would make this journey through Shop Street hundreds of times. And strangely, before I made any real friends, I developed a sense of community, which also feels weird, because you think of community as being connected with people in a tight and personal way. But I think in this case, I felt connected to a city, a broader, more abstract sense of people first, which, blessed that I got to feel that at all. I don't think I've ever felt a part of a community before. Definitely not like that. And a little perk that I wasn't expecting, all this walking, I got a healthier life out of it too. There was a period of time where walking over a mile would have kind of winded me, and I would have needed to stop or take a break or something. Or I would have gotten blisters on my feet. But by the time I left Ireland, I could walk for several miles, and I don't think I've gotten a blister on my feet since. And those of you that know me, I wear boots all the time, and I have not had a blister on my feet since winter of 2022 when I first got to the country. I can take them anywhere. I've got hobbit feet now with all the walking I was doing. That has kind of created this sort of positive feedback loop where now I want to take care of myself more, because I got a taste of what it felt like to be capable and to see where my body could take me on its own merits without the need of a car. The only reason I got to experience any of that was because I wasn't confined to a car when I lived in Ireland. The car is really isolating when you think about it. It seats 4, but 99% of the time it's just sitting one person, the driver. A street that's busy with vehicular traffic is obnoxiously noisy at best and dangerous at worst. It drives people away. And even when you're using your car to get to a social space or public space, the only point that you're able to interact with the community or connect with people is at the very end of that journey when you arrive at the destination. Whereas if you're walking or taking the bus or the train, there's dozens of points to meet and connect with people, to feel a part of a community, or at least kind of absorb the energy of the city and culture around you. I recognize that not every street is going to have buskers and performance artists and demonstrations on it, but life happens when you're outside of the car. Nothing cool ever happens inside of a car unless you're on a date with somebody, and then sometimes something really cool happens. But for the most part, you put your life on pause when you get in a car, and you press resume as soon as you step out of it. So yeah, the car is a bit like a toxic partner that's trying to cut you off from the rest of the world, and unfortunately, it's really good at it. In order to get into town and to my job, I would have to take the bus from Spittle, which ran about every hour and a half, and it would cost me about €4 each way. At first, that seemed really expensive, especially because all the college kids that would take the bus were only paying half price for fare, and I only like ageism when it affects boomers, but whatever, besides the point. I decided to run the numbers, and on any given month, I would be spending anywhere from €160 to €200 a month on bus fare. And again, that sounded like a lot, so I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll look into buying a car earlier than I expected, because $200 a month on bus fare seems kind of ridiculous. Surely paying for petrol would get me to town cheaper and faster than the bus would. So just to make sure, I decided to look at some of my old bank statements from when I was living in the US to check the numbers. And I was wrong. In Utah, I was spending anywhere from $200 to $250 on gas alone. At worst, I was even, and at best, I was actually saving around $90 every single month. As a cheapskate, that really positively changed how I viewed taking the bus into town. And like I kind of alluded to, I started to grow fond of taking the bus. And also, everybody in Galway gets to complain about the bus being late or too full or smelly. And I don't have a lot in common with these people, so I was taking every commonality I could get. So if I can complain about the bus to start a conversation with somebody, I'm gonna do it. When I got back to Utah, I got a really rude reminder that gas is not the only expense when it comes to owning a car. After living in Utah for less than a month, I had already spent almost $1,000 on a new registration, insurance, a new seatbelt, a new battery, a windshield, and a tow from Santa Quinn to North Salt Lake. Oh my god! And this isn't even abnormal. For the average American driving 40 miles a day and for 15,000 miles a year, it costs $12,000 to operate and own a car in the US. And because I spent almost $1,000 a month, that actually means I was right on schedule. I'm right on par with every other American. Holy shit. As opposed to when I was living in Ireland on a low-paying service industry job, I was able to afford going to 4 festivals, visiting London, Amsterdam, and Berlin, all within a year. I was able to afford all of that because 1, I was not pissing away just hundreds of euros a month on a car, and 2, I could build a more effective and reliable budget for myself. You wanna know why I could build a better budget? Because I didn't have to pad my savings with an emergency wallet fuck moment.
Oh, damn it!
Bills like that happen all the time, and we're just forced to set aside a bunch of money so we can get that car repaired when we need to. But if you don't have a car, then you can build a budget that has less surprises in it, less of those wallet fuck moments. You can plan your year better, and also you can actually save money by planning your year out in advance, because if you're buying accommodations and plane tickets months and months in advance, then you're saving money, because the ticket that you buy this week is going to be way more expensive than the ticket you bought 6 months ago. And you can buy a ticket 6 months in advance if you don't need to set aside so much money to keep your car alive. You actually save money on top of not spending all the bills to keep your car up and running. You know the thing that sucks the most about having a car in America? It's the fact that it's a necessary scam to live your life for the most of us. We've built our cities around the car, and that has just ruined everything. It's damn near impossible to get anywhere without one. There's hardly any useful public transport. Everything is so far apart from each other because every building has to provide a bunch of parking spaces so 50 different individuals can show up in their giant lifted Cummins turbo diesel thunderfuck trucks. There are some cities in the US where parking lots literally take up almost half of the entire city. I'm not even joking. That's not an exaggeration. So much empty space that just pushes everything further apart. And for what? And not to mention, in many cities, you can't even park for free. God help you if you're just trying to vibe for a while in the city that you just traveled to and not have to keep an eye on the fucking meter that you're paying for. Now, if you're really dedicated, you can technically walk places if you want to. And there are sort of buses that can help facilitate that for you. But why would you want to? American streets are dull, lifeless, depressing, cheap. There's nothing interesting to see. Maybe a well-maintained lawn next to the road if you're lucky. It's extremely noisy because you're right next to the roadway, and sometimes there's not even a sidewalk at all, and you're just marching along on the shoulder like a fucking idiot. The necessity of the scam is just so infuriating. Maybe you already knew this on some level, but cars are not good for you. They're bad for you. The fumes that they all emit, bad for your lungs. The longer you spend driving a car, the more likely you are to have high blood pressure and high cholesterol. You can get stress-related problems. And you can also just die. It can also just kill you. Just drive you right off a tree or into a cliff. Wait, into a tree over a cliff. Or someone else can drive their car into you, and then you're dead also. And sure, you don't experience a car accident every single day unless you're incredibly unlucky, but even successful, safe trips can be exhausting. Hundreds of decisions are made every single time you get behind the wheel of a car, determining how fast to go, when to brake, when to change lanes, keeping an eye on other cars, navigating around other cars, or surprise road hazards. All of these micro decisions about operating a car add up, and it can take a significant mental toll on the driver. Meanwhile, when I was taking the bus in All Ireland, I got to do stuff. I got to sit and read a book, or watch a video, or take care of bills, watch emails. Don't watch emails, that's really boring. Or I could do nothing and just listen to music and vibe and process the day that I just had. Or if I was on foot, I could just stop and stare at something for a while. Silver Strand, Spittle Beach, the sunset, a busker, anything. And for either the bus or on foot, I could also just be stinking drunk. It's fucking awesome. I can specifically remember on a night out, I caught the last bus from Galway to Spittle, and there was this old guy that was just singing songs the second he got on the bus, and by the time I got to my stop, everybody on the bus was singing along with him, and you just don't get that experience any other way. So, in conclusion, while cars are very useful in specific situations, I hate them and their manufacturers for what they've done to the American culture. They bleed us dry. They foster isolation. I haven't even talked about the air pollution and climate change stuff either. Or the latest trend of just slamming these nuclear-powered headlights onto fucking anything that moves. I hate it. It doesn't have to be this way. This plague, while deeply embedded in American life, is fixable. I think a good place to start is to educate yourself. Learn something, so when a conversation about a commute or traffic or cars comes up, you can have that opportunity to educate and inform other people. Another thing to do is pay attention to your local government meetings about expanding roadways, installing bike lanes. I don't care if you've hated every cyclist you've ever met, because you will vote for a bike lane every time you get the chance to, and you will like it. And the last thing that you can do is to like and subscribe, because I'm trying to become a big shot YouTuber guy, and if this takes off, I don't have to drive anywhere. So that's one car off the road, because I'll be working remote. How about that? And I think that's everything. Bye!